we have got a deep dive session from Rahul. He is going to share what's new. It is the core presentation of the day, which shares what's the best, what's the latest, and what's most exciting in Solid Edge 2023. Rahul, over to you.
Thank you, Danish. Am I audible at the back? Thank you. Hey, can we close the doors? Somebody, please. So since morning, I'm seeing a little bit less energy, yeah? So I want to do something. First thing is, how many people have traveled from outside Pune? Anybody have traveled outside Pune? Oh, thank you, appreciate that. So in Pune, we always say, Kasa kai Pune? Kashe ahat tumi? Right, so when I say Kashe ahat tumi, I want to hear you are good. So Marathi आपण काय म्हणतो मजेत आहे, right? So can I have that 3 times? कसे आहात तुम्ही? आवाज नाही येते. कसे आहात? कसे आहात? Thank you. Last week I was down with dengue and I still have that sort of energy to deliver because I'm excited. Thank you for being an excited crowd. So I'm going to sit and deliver if that's okay. So I'll be introducing you Solid Edge 2023 highlights this year, and this is going to be the highlight for the session highlight for today. We talking about create, collaborate, and connect. And my friend Nitin, Vineet have set the stage with accelerator share as well as the PD team developments that go in the background. Okay, so you must have seen this. Anybody who has come later on after Vineet's session. This is a machine by the name of Yanu. It's an automated bartending robot, and I'll be talking about this. Each year we come up with a customer spotlight. This year it's Yanu. It's an Estonia-based company founded in 2019 using Solid Edge from that time, and they are one of our beta testing customers also. So this slide actually talks about a condensed form of everything that I'm going to talk about in the next 40-45 minutes. This is bringing you much more productivity gains if you are. So how many of you are actually using the software? Actual users of Solid Edge? Can we have a raise of hands? Wow, thanks. Anybody on 2023 already? Oh, thank you. PD team, you can catch them for the inputs, huh? Okay, so I'm really excited to talk about some new functionalities like Solid Edge Inspector, and I'll be asking you if you have a quality department, if you do first article inspection reports. Then we have introduced within Core CAD a lot of things like PMIs, MBDs. I'm sure everybody would have heard these jargons. Visual explodes. With simulation, we have introduced how do you simulate a model that's already been gone through generative design, and it's actually a mesh model. So how do you mesh a meshed model? And that's something which is very unique with our Siemens products. You won't find that with a lot of other competitive products. So in the next half an hour or so, I'll be just taking you through all of this. Any questions anybody has, can feel free to stop me, raise your hands, and myself and along with my colleague Nitin here will be able to handle those questions. Okay, so diving straight up into mechanical design enhancements, which are to do with Solid Edge Core CAD, where you, with all these enhancements, the design engineer basically does a lot less clicking and a lot more work done fast. Now it's time for a live demo, and after doing the live demo, I would come back and do the summary. So, okay, what you see on screen is the Yanu bartending robot and the entire thing made within Solid Edge 2023. First up, what you would have noticed is the refreshed UI, right? So on the top, you can see that the command bars as well as the ribbons are completely refreshed, and the color scheme is also now pretty much professional and upbeat. The UI, we have got a lot of inputs on the UI. Those who have used our earlier software, some people are excited to use this. Some have still, pretty much use the older UI and want to use those, all those sort of, so very interesting comments that have been observed. But this is basically in line with the other CAD software that Siemens has to offer, right? And the UI is completely revamped with, along with the symbols and the animation that it shows you while I just hover over the commands. You can see that those certain animations would help a new user to adopt the software much more faster. On the left hand side now we have a pathfinder that is dockable and can also be set to transparent, so that if the CAD model actually goes a little bit behind it, you can still view the CAD model, and that sort of setting is been given. We have also introduced the new search bar, and if you have large big assemblies and you want to search something quickly, you can just type in the search bar, and you can launch the part or sub-assembly from there. Again, if you want to go ahead, hide and show things, right, you don't need to right click or do anything of that sort. We have given a eye sort of a symbol here where you can simply go and hide stuff, showing you an example where the bottom cover is hidden, and simply by pressing one click comes back again. So that's something that's new. Apart from this, something interesting that I'm going to show you is now if you are in an assembly environment, part environment, sheet metal environment, doesn't matter, there is a in context toolbar that pops up, and I'm moving it on the screen right now. So what this in context toolbar does is it is an accumulation of frequently used commands, right? Object oriented frequently used commands, and this is just going to decrease your mouse travel every time to the command bar on the top. So what do you have over here? You have things like edit definition. You either want to edit that in place, open up, hide, show. All of these things are basically right at the fingertips. So just to give you a brief, since you have not seen this model in CAD, you can see that I'm just going to zoom on the top, and there are a lot of taps on the top from where the beverages are going to be filled up within the cup. This robo is actually 7-axis and is autonomous, programmed in such a way that when an order is going to be placed on the screens that you see over here, the robo is going to understand which drink to fill, right? So and then it takes the cup from here, puts it to the top, and then fills the drink, and then again serves it. So everything is properly managed by the robot. The payments are also understood, identified, and this is completely contactless. So when I say 2019, what comes to our mind is, contactless is much more important, so they have achieved that. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you what's new this time around. I'm going to use the assembly of the robot. So I have two ways of doing that. Simply hovering over it, I can quick pick and then understand where my robot assembly is. I can also go ahead and type the same within the search bar. So since I forgot the name, I'm going to the quick pick. And the in context toolbar is just popped up. So wherever the last time I've left it, it will come up over there automatically, and I'm going to open this assembly. Once this assembly is open, there are certain configurations that I have already made, and the request from the team is for this part to be made. I'm sorry, while the part would already be here, I should have deleted it before coming in. Apologies for that. So I'm going to take this and open it. Basically, I'm just I would have to delete a whole lot of things in order to show you what has to be done, and I'm just going through all of that. A couple of cutouts that I don't want to miss out, right? It's basically just a sketch that I start off with and I show the sketch, right? So apologies again for that. Okay, now that I have a sketch, let's see what's new within the latest edition of Solid Edge. the extrude command that was earlier available is now being unified for extrude cut as well as boss extrude. So let's see how we can do that. The first thing is I'm going to pick up the sill out edges and tell the software what I want to extrude. You would also observe that all the command bars are now vertical instead of them being horizontal earlier on, and I personally find it pretty much easy to work on once I get a hands on this. So a simple click on the sketch and it asks me whether I want to actually extrude it or cut through. This time around I'm going to put in a value of 6 mm and going to extrude it in this direction, say finish. On the next direction, these are some basic stuff I would be showing you, but on the next thing, this is something new. I right click on the sketch and you have activate regions. Now within the sketches, all the closed regions can be identified just by hovering over them, and this is how you do them. You activate the regions, and once I go over the 2D sketches, I can start selecting them just by pressing space bar. Various different regions can be selected at the same time, so you can see various regions are there, and at the same time you can see that the quick context toolbar appears according to what I have selected, right? So I can go ahead and select extrude from here, or I could have gone to the context menu to the command bar on the top. Again, I am going to extrude in this direction with a 7.5 mil and say OK. So my part is taking shape. The next thing I want to do is basically identify the regions for the holes, and this is where the gears are going to sit, and I'm actually going to, so when I go to the command bar, I hope at the back you can see my cursor. You have a extrude add cut over here. It's set to automatic by default. If you have used add or cut in the previous command, it remembers that and you can revisit that automatically. So let's say for example I accept this, and you can see that now it is creating a feature. I'm going to go ahead and say symmetric extend. Let's say for example I finish this by a mistake. Instead of creating holes, simple way of going back, again click on this. You have an option of edit definition. Go back, instead of add just say cut, and it gets sorted there itself. Okay, in order to finish this part, there are some other things that I need to take care of. So again, if I right click on the sketch here, within the quick picks we have also made sure that the sketch is going to be shown first, then the region, then the protrusion, the cutout, and then so on and so forth, right? So we start off with the sketch as always. So that's one of the things that has been enhanced. So I want this region, and I can select this region, and with the in context toolbar select extrude. This time around I'm going to make sure that this is going to cut and not on both the sides but on one side to 3 mm. Okay, say finish. I also want to make a recess on the bottom, so if I simply hover over it, you can see that it has identified the closed region. I select the closed region, right click, and I'm just going to remove the material. Say finish. The next thing that is remaining is the tab on the top, and I select the tab. You remember this, I had set it to a cut, so it remembers it, and this time around I want to add the material. I select and say 3 mm to this direction. Okay, part almost ready, coming in shape. All I need to do is give it a certain rounds. This is the earlier years, some of the customer enhancements that we have shown, which is, you know, right click of the mouse wheel, keep the right click, move around, and you have this radial wheel that pops up. You can customize the commands over here. So I'm just going to give it 2 mm rounds to finish off this. Say OK, preview, finish. Okay, now that this is done, the next set of enhancements which are included within Core CAD is basically, I'll right click and I don't need to activate regions anymore. I can also go ahead and hide the sketch, which is basically just here or here. It can be accessed from both the directions. We have now included certain synchronous commands within the ordered environment, and you would be very happy to see that. So in Home tab, you would see move faces, and when I hover over it, you can also see a small animation of what that is. So certain synchronous commands like move faces, rotate faces, and offset faces are now included within ordered environment. So how is this going to help you? Let's see that example. So I select move face, and I have a requirement coming from my manager saying that, hey, you have done the design, but can you change this at last minute? So no need to move from order to synchronous. We have move faces directly over here. Select the face, right click. You can see that the synchronous steering wheel appears right over there, and you can also see the design intent, which is shown on the right hand side. I need to move this by a few mm towards the right, but you can see the design intent is showing me that coplanar relationships are active right now, and that is not actually required for me to move the upper face. So I can actually press P on the keyboard, and that will take that off, and I can move this by 1.5 mm. Another example where I'm asked to increase the height of this circular portions of this part is I get the synchronous wheel, and I can either move this up and down. Now you would have complete control over this. You can also get rid of the concentricity of the hole so that the holes don't move. Right now my requirement is that the hole should also move, and I'm going to move this by 2 mm to the top. The next command I want to show you is similar to what is available here, is rotate faces. So in order to make some last minute design changes, I have been asked to make the bottom of this part a little bit bigger. So I can use rotate faces and right click. You can see that the steering wheel has appeared. I can reposition it to appear onto the edge, and then use it to increase or either decrease. You can see that this is easy to do. So the highlight of this is basically any synchronous changes that you make within the order environment are completely captured into the pathfinder on the left hand side, and you can anytime revisit them and make certain changes. All right, so how do we mount this part? The only way to mount this part is to have certain holes. Let's go to the hole command, right? And within options, we have introduced something new over here. So this is a general hole, and the drill size, you can see the fit class to be exact. If I change this to general screw tolerance, you can see that we have 3 different options now that pop up: close, normal, and loose. The other thing that I wanted, so these are all available with counter bore as well as threaded countersink also. I wanted to show you the threaded option because that's what I want. I would change this to M3 as I want certain holes of specific sizes. I can also keep certain settings saved, and if I save this, it would appear as my saved settings, and I have saved certain settings for it to work. Once this is established, you would also then have options to, I don't know if I need to change this standard thread, but once I select this, you have other options like the tolerances that would appear here. So if you want general tolerances, upper limits, lower limits, both would be available by the click of the button. Probably some other settings would also be available. And then the beauty of this is once you give all of these would be available on the drawing automatically, as well as when you are giving those PMIs onto the MBD models, this would then automatically come on those also. So I'll just go ahead with the settings that I've done and say okay. Let's make the hole on this plane. I'll use the axis and give it a smart dimension. I want it to be placed at around 18.5 from the center, and I'll say OK. Once the hole has been made, I'll say finish and then go with the patterning. So I'll select the feature that needs to be patterned, and then the sketch that I need to draw. So this is center of the hole, this one, this direction, and I want it 6 in numbers. The count is 6 already. Say OK, finish. So now that I have 6 holes in place, I say finish. Part is almost done. So you can see that there were a couple of enhancements that needed to be shown while making this part. Didn't take much time for this. Let's go back and see how the part fits within the assembly, and this is how the part actually goes and fits within the assembly. This is why the holes were for, right, at the bottom. Now another enhancement is with respect to the style palette. It was already there, but we have added a lot more styles over here, more than 1,000 styles. I would like to show you a few, like, you know, we have got composites, fabrics, some glasses, leathers, lights, liquids, metals, and all you need to do in order to apply any of these is basically drag and drop them, right? So I have aluminium that I want to drag and drop on this, anything that I want. So this one dragged and dropped, it takes the it applies the material as well as the appearance. So that's one of the neat enhancements that was discussed. Let's go back now that the part has been made to the main assembly. Once we are in the main assembly, I'm going to go ahead and show you certain enhancements within the assembly. So another neat enhancement that you would observe is under tools we have introduced something as visual explode. This is quite interesting when you have a large assembly and you want to see the visual explode done. There are two options embedded within one command, and the first one is just a slider that moves from left to right, and you would see the effect that it gets over here. So you can see that I'm just moving the slider and this basically just starts exploding. It doesn't matter how big or small the assembly is, you can see all the minute details before giving all of this for production manufacturing. And then the interesting part is you have stepwise explode, which is something interesting, right? You click on this button and then you move the cursor from right to left. Notice the difference. Any inputs from your side what the difference is? So right, so it takes into consideration some of the sub-assemblies first, right? It is looking at those sort of levels first, right? And then you see this difference, right? So up till now, are you finding this interesting? Something that you had asked for before? Yeah, thank you. So these were basically some core CAD enhancements, and I would like to revisit my presentation. Okay, I'm going to summarize what all you just saw. You have an updated and refreshed user interface. Now you can define regions in 2D order sketches, like you can also use the synchronous steering wheel, which makes things much more easier. You have a unified add and remove command within the ordered features. You have a lot of input and selection options that would basically streamline the entire process of going through a design, and highest frequency object specific commands are now available within a click within all the different environments that we offer. You also saw visual explode with 2 steps, and the style palette in which we have included 1000 plus high quality styles which are added. It just requires simple drag and drop, and you can also have a folder with frequently used styles that keeps things very much under control. Okay, this brings me to the next part, which is interoperability, and this year we have really pushed the boundaries, where we have brought in collaboration with your existing solid edge motion kinematics data that goes into NX MCD as well as process simulate. Anybody of you over here heard what NX MCD or process simulate is? Raise of hands. Somebody at the back. So you heard about it? Have you had a chance to use it? Excellent, excellent. Thanks. I would like to hear something from you right after probably during the break about how you are using it, right, so that it can reach the wider audience. Okay, so the tagline here, go further with your design data. Basically, I'm going to make use of this existing robot, which is 7-axis. We are going to we have already done motion on this within Solid Edge. Take all of this kinematic data, try to find if we can do the process simulate, process this for the dynamic data within process simulate. For this, I'm going to run a small video, no live presentation here. Okay, so again we are focusing on the robot which does all the work basically here. It picks up the drink, it fills up the glass, puts it back again. So that requires a lot of dynamics and motion movements, right? So the first thing that you see is we are going to open up the robot assembly, and all the joints are going to be captured. All the parts are captured automatically unless you want some parts to be excluded. This is the motion environment of Solid Edge. Different types of joints, basically just revolute joints over here, which are going to help the robot move in different directions. The very base part is of course grounded, so that is not going to move. We are going to save all of this as an extension of the file. The CAD file is going to be saved as JT, and all of that joint information and motion information is saved as PLM XML. All of that is then put into process simulate, and we have a command called joint jog, which actually sees if the information that was captured within Solid Edge is processed within here. And then you have this kinematics editor to see if all the links on how these relations within Solid Edge were given are captured perfectly or not. Once that is done, you have after the kinematic editor, you can give the motion and simulate. So there is this particular line that I was not, I actually have written it down just so that I am speaking the correct things. So the movement is defined from the tool center point frame, TCPF, using inverse kinematic movements, which are then calculated automatically. So a little bit of technical stuff going on over there, and that's how you bring all of that data and use all of that information from within Solid Edge into process simulate as well as NX downstream applications. I think I've already spoken about this during the video. Just to summarize this, you can see that we can export joints, couplers, links, anything that are rigid bodies, geometry references, even gravity, mechanical mass properties that go into from Solid Edge into NX and process simulate. And then the data is exported using PLM XML as well as lightweight formats, which is JT, Jupyter tessellation file formats. Okay, this is something that has been enhanced within the CAD Direct support, and those who have attended our session last year would know what CAD Direct is. So if you are working with a lot of vendors and third-party CAD system data, you would get files from SolidWorks, neutral file formats like JT, Step, Parasolid, in terms of parts as well as assemblies, right? So now we are able to open all of that within the CAD Direct functionality within Solid Edge assemblies. Of course, we support NX parts also over there, which makes working and collaborating with our colleagues either from internal company or outside who are vendors much more easier. Now the beauty of this is solid bodies and surfaces are inserted as internal components within the assembly, so that you don't need to save all of that on a folder location outside. Wherever the assembly is, all of this information would be contained within that assembly itself. Of course, if there is any revision on the original data, all you need to do is make sure that the file name is same and is replaced with the previous file. And as long as the references are there, they'll get updated automatically. So that's the beauty of CAD Direct. This brings me to the next enhancement, which was highly requested by most of the users who are into paperless manufacturing. This is model-based definition standing for MBD, and I'm also going to be talking a lot about PMIs. So anybody knows what PMI stands for? Can I have a show of hands? So any information that can be put onto the 3D model itself, which will help the manufacturer to manufacture it without taking a printout, right? PMI stands for product manufacturing information, right? And PMI and MBD are always spoken of in the same breath. So that's why the tagline here is leverage design and manufacturing intent seamlessly. Before I come over here, I'm going to show this live. So give me a second to close this down. I'm not going to save this time. And for the PMIs, I actually require a couple of other assemblies also to be open. So I've pinned them down in my recent folders here. That makes it much more easy for me to open up. This is one of the assembly that I'm going to talk about. The second one is this. Yeah, and there's one more assembly I'm going to talk about. Okay, so going back to my main assembly, I'm just going to put it to all parts, right? So within this assembly is hidden a maze of all structures, sheet metal components, and I want my manufacturer to know how exactly the dimensions are going to be placed. So the internal assembly over here is basically this one, and you can see that certain callouts and PMIs are already listed over here. There's a small part that I'm going to open up, which is a sheet metal part, and that requires a little bit of attention from the design engineer because some other things are not defined, and I've opened it over here. You can see that the dimensions are a little bit haphazard, and mostly working on any other 2D CAD systems, you would have to move all of these manually, right? So what's new with Solid Edge 2023 is within the PMIs, we have something called as arranged dimensions, and this will actually take all the PMIs, select them automatically. We can give a stack pitch of 1 over here, and we can ask the software to create an alignment set. That means all the dimensions that I would select either manually or automatically will get aligned automatically and would create a set of alignment. So if I move one dimension, all the rest of them would move according to that. So over here, I'm just going to press one single button to deselect everything, and to the naked eye, this might see a little bit not in a proper way. I'm just going to select all the dimensions towards the right. Right, all the dimensions that are selected turn green. I simply want to not select 2 dimensions, and I've selected a stack pitch of 1, and I just simply say arrange. So this will do a fantastic job basically, and I can do this multiple times by changing the stack pitch also. My work is done. I'll deselect them. This also would depend on how zoomed in or zoomed out I am. So depending on that, you would also find a lot of changes. Now on the left hand side, you see that certain dimensions are into one another, and how do I work with this? This time around, I want a stack pitch of 1.5, and I'm going to select these dimensions. You would see that even after selecting this dimension, it's not selected because that is not included within the automated arrange to area selection. So this time around, I'm going to say that I want to arrange to area, and then it will zoom in the entire part of the assembly, and it will ask me what area do I want to fit all these dimensions within. So I have an option of selecting an area. I simply click and select it to this area, and if I zoom in, basically I can also go in the background and arrange the fonts, but for the naked eye, if I zoom out, this is just going into each other right now, but you have understood what I wanted to convey. Okay, so this was one of the good enhancements. Second thing you would have observed is I need to still give dimensions for a couple of holes over here, right? Those are not defined. So can I do this manually? Of course, but then the enhancement here is about auto dimension, where actually the once you set the options for auto dimension properties which pop up automatically, like what do you want to dimension automatically? Planar faces, cylinders, holes, what sort of dimensions do you require here? And you can set the template for this, right? So I'm doing a demonstration here, and I can give it a name as this, and all of these would then pertain to the set template. So I was in a few minutes back talking about the dimensions where you can choose between unit tolerance, limit tolerance, basic, reference, and here I have given plus minus 0.5. For simple hole diameter, I have chosen unit tolerance. No, this template has not been, so once I apply this um, and say OK, so those the template will then be applied there, and these would change. Right, so what I need to do in order to give the dimensions automatically is I want to find out if the datum selection has been done or not. So I'm going to select 3 orthogonal datums, the first one being the primary datum. Once selected, it turns into green. The secondary datum is going to be my this face, and the third tertiary datum is going to be my bottom face. And then I have 2 options for feature selection. Should I ask the software to do this automatically? Here I want just to select 2 holes, so I'm going to go to manual selection and I'm going to select the 2 holes, one over here, the second at the bottom, and say accept. So and I'll say finish. So once I do this, you can see that the entire information that was required has been given. All I need to do is just reposition this in place. I'm just going to pull this out real quick and move it to the side, and there is a dimension that has appeared on the right hand side. I can put it back here. Okay, so this was about auto dimension. The next thing that I actually wanted to show was about an enhancement that talks about the model view palette. So how do you actually capture all these views and bring them all onto the drawing sheet? So here you have a model view palette, and it opens on the right hand side. The model view palette is nothing but the models that we have created, the different views that we are going to capture and then bring it into a manufacturing drawing, or you can publish this into a PDF also. So I have 2 views that are created. Some keen eyes would have observed that the recent changes that I have made to this view have not been captured. So there is a reason for that. I'll just go back and show you where all of this has been captured. So this view is by the name of dimension dim_r, and I'm just going to right click this, and this is going to say edit the model view, which actually tells the model view palette that we are editing this and I want to capture much more information within this view. And within the annotations, I'm going to, I think it is the dimensions. Within the annotations, let me see. Yeah, these are the new annotations that I need to put either on or off. Is it dimensions? Yeah, some dimensions are hidden here. So I'll just show all the dimensions, right? And I'll say finish. So once that is done, I just need to use the arrows left and right, or I can directly double click here and then go back to see that my model view has captured all those changes that I have made. So that's pretty much easy for the design engineer to do. The next thing is I'm going to go ahead and create a view. So I'm going to hide all the PMIs, move this to, let's say, a front view, and then hide this. So I need to set the view first in order to capture. And you have a button on a top here on the model view palette which creates a view, and I can give it any name that I want. It's the front view for me over here. Say finish, and I'm going to go ahead and give it certain dimensions just for the relevance of it. This is 6 mm in thickness, and just some random dimension about the length of it. And I can also go ahead and give it a feature control frame. I have already set this up just to save time, and I can have this template saved also, like the one that I have saved this before. So I say OK and select this and the flatness of 0.05. The next thing I can also give in 2023 is now you can have the rich text which appears as notes. I've already saved that as a template, and you can also link those notes to the property texts, like for example over here it's the revision number. So let me find where the revision number is and say OK, and basically it actually shows you a preview of that over here. and once the note has been placed, the software makes sure that this is saved within the node bank, and if you want to reuse this again and again, no need to go over there again, it's already there within a node bank. So this is now saved, and all I need to do is just go to the previous view, come back again, and all that information is going to be right over there. So I'm going to go back to my first view that I have created. Let's go ahead and see if I can create a drawing out of this. So right click on this, and you can see that I have an option of create drawing. This will ask me what template to select, so I have already selected a template, and then I have 3 options that come for me. I'm going to select create from model view and say OK. So this will automatically open up the template sheet that we have selected and insert that view over here. Of course, the normal options are available with us to increase, decrease the size of the view, so on and so forth. Not only this, you can also access the model view palette within the drawing view. So you can see that on the right hand side over here. So if I want to drag and move a view over here, all I need to do is simply drag and move this view, and there are several different options that are available. So the first one on the right hand side is where you want to align it with some other view, and once I place any view, it will ask me what is the other view you want to align it to, and I simply need to click this, and it gets in place in position. So this is one of the new enhancements that we have come up with having a lot of requests on this. So are you with me up till now? Are you finding this a little bit interesting? Any questions? Any questions for the PD team? Do you want to see something new? Apart from this, just throw it. Okay, I'll move on. I'll go back to the presentation. So again, summarizing, basically we have a command that automatically creates the PMIs now. You can save all of this within custom schemes and bring them up again and again if required, and it also automatically checks. So there is a check in place if parts are over constrained or under constrained. So it depends on that. Depending on if it's under constraint or over constraint, it will show the different colors like green and some other colors. Okay, we have also enhanced the model view palette within the 3D environment as well as the 2D documentation, and now we can create drawings with a few clicks by just dragging and moving onto the sheet, and the drawing is there. So this is one part that I missed. To go into the 3D, I'll go back and show you this. So this is additional MBD support that we have done. Is anything that you while giving the callouts, the annotations as well as the tolerances are already there, and there is cross reference between them. Notes and text box can of course be saved and can be reused again and again. And fit class and unit tolerances, the ones that we give while giving the holes and dimensions, are appearing on the PMIs now. So just allow me to go back and revisit this. This is already open on my side. You can see that the view palette is there. I was talking about this where once we give it, while giving the dimension, this appears onto the PMIs automatically. Moving on to the next view, you can see that section views are now can now be given single solid color, so that if you are taking multiple part section views, they can have different colors now, which is much more pleasing to the eye. Now a new enhancement over here is, if we go to the traditional center line command, you have something called as the center axis, right? So this was a long awaited one, and I'm pretty much happy. So all you need to do is select this, and the center line appears, and once the center line appears, I can actually drag it and move it around to make it bigger, right? Once this becomes bigger, I can also go ahead and give it certain dimensions through by using that, and I'm sorry, I chose the wrong command. It has to be instead of auto dimension, smart dimension. Through the center line to let me just reorient it to the left view, to the top view. This is what one dimension I want to give. The second dimension is using the center line again, axis. I'll give another dimension. right? So it becomes much more easy when you have section cut views, and this is applicable for bores, shafts, cylinders, anything that you can apply a center line to. So this becomes easy. Next thing is, once a call out or a dimension has been applied to the feature, you now have a cross reference. So you select the dimension and it gets highlighted on the part itself, even though it's a cut section. You can see the different part features are highlighted there. So that's another enhancement that has been done. Moving on ahead, you can see that some of the dimensions over here would be given while, I'll just put on the PMIs, not everything, sorry, just let me see what view this is. Top profile active. So in model views, I need to put on the dimensions, right? And so the basic enhancement over here is I can go to copy to PMI, and any dimensions that were given while making this part can be selected, and they will get converted from sketch dimensions into PMI dimensions, right? That's something which was requested from a very long time, and we have delivered that. Sorry, I'm not able to show you that. Somehow I'm not able to locate the PMIs on this. Let me again try this for a very last time. Copy to PMI. I'm going to select this. These are the dimensions here, and I'm going to select the top dimensions and say OK. So it is going to take into consideration all the dimensions that I have selected, and then turn them into PMI dimensions. Once this is done, the beauty of this is you can select the dimensions, and it also has a cross reference with which they are attached. So the dimensions actually get attached to whatever they have been asked to annotate. So you see this face here. So the 3 mm, it will actually show you what the dimensions are on the screen. So this was about MBD. I'll quickly move on. Okay, now a question about, so how many of you actually make first article inspection reports? Can I see a raise of hands? Do you have a quality inspection department? Can you just tell us more about it? Is it a batch process? Is it, how is it? Can we have the mic in the crowd, please? Somebody. Manually, okay. Right. Okay, thank you for the input. So we have come up with Solid Edge Inspector basically to address that issue where most of the first article inspection reports are made manually, and there are a lot of manual errors which are involved. It also takes a lot of time. So this would actually reduce a lot of designer time, quality inspector time from hours to minutes. So it automatically identifies, labels and extracts critical design characteristics from a 2D drawing as well as MBD or 3D PMIs. Okay, so let me go ahead and show you all of this live. I'm just going to close all of the documents before moving on, and I'm not going to save anything as usual. Okay. Yeah, back to my dimensions, and I would require one more part to be open for this. So coming back to the part that we worked on MBD, and then I'm going to process the same part with the inspector. So another way of opening up the drawing for this is going into data management, opening the draft, automatically identifies where the draft has been saved, and it opens it up, just launches it automatically. So this was what I just created a couple of seconds ago. I don't need the model view palette. So where do you find this Solid Edge Inspector? You go to Assistant and go for Solid Edge Inspector. Once this Solid Edge Inspector is launched, it is launched on the right hand side. It is a completely dockable pane, so you can actually move it around. If I want to pin it around, I can pin it. So what do I actually want to capture from this drawing is the bill of characteristics, right? Whatever has been given like GD&T, dimensions, notes, all of this would get captured within a few clicks. In order to do that, the first thing I need to set is a template. a template for the tolerances, right? So you have this option at the very bottom of general tolerances, which open up the tolerance table, and you have various options according to ISO 2768. These can be, of course, customized according to how you want them, and I'm going to set them to medium. And you have linear tolerances, angular, Bohr, chamfer tolerances. All these can be set beforehand. I'm going to save this and close. This is what I'm going to apply. The next thing I'm going to go with ballooning. So this command here is going to create the CNs automatically, and all I have to do is just click that. So once I click that, it creates balloons very neatly, cleanly throughout the drawing. I'm just going to zoom on some of them to showcase you what all it has captured, right? Of course, there would be so many questions popping up in your mind right now. Can we change the balloon numbering? Can we change the color scheme? Can we mark critical balloons? All of that is definitely possible, some of which I'm also going to be showing you. Now, once this is created, there should be a document which actually accumulates all of this information and puts that into a single document for the quality inspector to go through, right? So yes, definitely that's possible. Before going there, I would also like to show you different things that are related to the ballooning. You can actually go ahead and hide and show things. So if you want to hide and show, just in case your drawing has too many dimensions and the balloonings are too close together, you can hide and show this together. Here you have an option to hide and show the table in which everything has been captured. So this is a table which can be sort of customized with applying a lot of filters. So I'll put this at the bottom. I have a little bit crunch with the space, so I'll move this around just to show you the dimensions and the ones that have been captured here. So you see the GD&T has been captured, the class has been captured, nominal values, upper lower limits. The ones that are in yellow are basically indicating that the dimensions do not have any tolerances applied, and then it is referring to the template that we had set up in the background, and then it takes information from that template and puts it over here. So simple stuff. You can also see a couple of dimensions that can be highlighted by selecting. So I selected the 14 number dimension, and it cross highlighted this one. Similar, the 15 number one is over here. Of course, it shows the same balloonings, 24, 24 and 23, 23 over here. The example that I want to show you here is by pressing Control, selecting both of them, right clicking here, we can change them from minor to critical, and then that's the priority that we have set for that, right? So we can also go ahead and apply filters and actually commit. Once you commit this, it changes from minor to critical. So what happens after this? You go to export, and you have two options of exporting this within some neutral file formats like comma separated values, CSV files, TIFF files, XML, so that that can be opened up on the browser, as well as project files, and you have a location of where to save it. The second thing is you can go ahead and create a report. It actually creates a report of this type. We also support AS9102. The Excel report can be customized basically, so the number of columns and what data get filled can be completely customized. I'm going to give it a name of A, and I've created this before, so I'm not going to go ahead and create this again. So I have opened up this in the background. This is revision A. This is how it makes a report within a couple of seconds. It actually captures whatever is there on screen, and it puts everything in a table, right? So there were two values that we had captured, which were critical, which are these, and it supports multiple pages also. So if you have multiple sheets, multiple pages, it supports all of this. The next thing I wanted to actually show you is what happens if there is a revision within the part, right? That's quite normal to happen. So let's revisit the part, select a few features, and The enhancement with respect to this is we have move faces now, synchronous command. Let's move this with an ordered environment with 2.5 mm towards the right. Right. Now, once this is done, let's go back to the drawing, update this. Of course, software would know automatically also if we have set that to. It tells me that a linear dimension has been was previously 22.5 and this value has changed to 25, and it also showcases me this along with the diameter. So nothing new over here, but what I am about to show you is with respect to. So I select smart dimension, that's because I want to give one dimension over here. So we have changed one dimension, we have added one dimension, and now I am going to delete one of them dimensions, which is going to be this angle. So you see that once I update, this is going to disappear, and let's see what happens. So I go back to inspection, and it's the same thing for creating and updating the CN list. I say update, and then it gives me a pop-up saying, do I want to update and scan all, or just update the existing one? So I say update and scan all, and you see two things that have happened. The balloon number 16 is gone. There is a fresh new balloon which is available for the newly added dimension, and of course it will show us the change over here. So where do we see all of this? You go back to the CN table, and it has already updated within this, but how do you see that? So you go ahead and apply a filter, and on the very right hand side you have this in green saying that there is a drawing change in the status, and I can apply a filter here by removing select all. I am going to select what I want to see: deleted, modified and new, and you can see that the 3 dimensions. The first one is deleted, second one is modified, and the third one is new, and all of these have appeared here: balloon number 16, 31 and 47. So again, makes it much more easier for us to even compare two drawings, right, if there is a revision between them. So this, and I can go back, I can go back and generate a report, and I can call it revision B, right. So revision B, I have generated a report already, kept it ready. This is revision B. On the top you can see that, and the certain changes are would be visible here. So this is new, this is modified, this is deleted, right. And if you want comparison of the two, it will also generate a comparison report with just 3 of them mentioned within that report, right. So up till now, did you find this interesting? Yes? Okay. The same is available with a 3D PMI model also. So it would balloon all of the 3D PMIs automatically, and we have the same table that is available. So I wouldn't go back again and show you that. Sorry, I need to go here. Right, so it automatically identifies, labels important information, and over 80% of time saving for the quality inspector. Data can be extracted in various neutral file formats like XML, CSV, etc. First article inspection reports automatically generated within an Excel file format, and you can have very easily location of errors that even manual errors are completely avoided with this. Okay, this brings me to the simulation features and enhancements. Anybody from the audience already using our simulation software? Can I have a show of hands? Any simulation, or we have simulation within the CAD also. Anybody who has used simulation, static simulation or any other simulation? Good, good sir, thank you. Make the most of your mesh, the ones that I am going to talk about. Before going there about the enhancements, I would actually like to tell you, most of you would not know that we also have a simulation portfolio, and this is the graphics wheel which actually talks about it. We also deal with structural simulation. We have an optimization of parts based on the structural integrity, as well as reducing the stresses or the mass of the part, which is integrated within our CAD itself, which is something unique. We have kinematic motion that is available. Generative design is something that is upcoming and very much in talk. Then you have thermal CFD flow, and we also offer one dimensional flow for closed circuit pipings. So this is a neat example of a machinery and what are the different things that you can apply simulation on. One is, you have a bracket and you can apply it for stress. The other one is you can analyze the natural frequency, like something of pump and motor. Then you can analyze the motion of the conveyor system at the end. This was something that we introduced a couple of years back, which is hydrostatic pressure in a storage tank, pressure due to the fluid and gravity being stored inside. You can analyze the buckling for the structure, slender, long members, and you can also analyze structure for factor of safety using von Mises stresses. This is something that we offer you. So the CAD module itself has so many things, like time-based motion, linear static, optimization. I don't know if you are using all of this to 100%. With standard simulation standard, we have this as an add-on module, and now this is available with value-based licensing also. I'll be coming to that. We are working with normal modes and buckling, and we have coupled solver like heat transfer, steady state, transient and heat transfer, and harmonic response. If you want to go much more ahead of this with nonlinear simulation, all of this data can be then passed on to our SimCenter portfolio, which can be anytime added on. Okay, coming back to what is new within SolidEdge 2023 simulation, I would also be going through the live setup of the generative design. But in a nutshell, what generative design is, it's available as an add-on within SolidEdge. Keeping the structural integrity, we are reducing the mass material of the part, and then some people would also want to run a simulation on that, right, to find out if that is after it's been optimized, can it actually be safe. So we are going to see how, and we call it convergent mesh modeling. So let's go ahead and see that live. Okay, I'll close down some documents that are no longer needed. For the simulation part, I would revisit my main assembly, go to explode, and this time around we have taken an example of something that is an everyday use, a caster wheel assembly, right? So I'm going to quick pick this and going to select this assembly, open it up within its own environment, and show you this bracket. Right click on this and edit in place, right? So once I'm editing in place, you can see the reference. I'm going to do a normal control Q and go with generative design. So my aim over here is to see if this bracket made with sheet metal basically is able to sustain the load of the entire assembly or not, right? So I'm going to go ahead and create a generative design study. By default, the material is steel. I'm going to apply a force of 1000 Newton in the opposite direction, right? And I want to say that the offset of this shouldn't be more than 2.5 mm, and I say okay. So the tab for generative design can appear on the right hand side. It's basically dockable. You can dock it anywhere you want, and it gives you a nice, sort of a pathfinder kind of a display of how many things are being done. The next thing is where is this going to be held together in place, right? So this is going to be fixed right at the bottom on these two places, and it asks me whether this should have an offset or not. So this is going to be 4 mm for me. I am saying that this shouldn't move more than 4 mm. And the next enhancement that I want to show is with respect to maximum displacement. This is actually telling the software that I don't want this face to move more than certain mm, right? So I'm going to put this as 0.05 and an offset. Again, it's the same value that it is asking me. I'm going to put it as just 2 mm over here. The next thing it is asking me, just place a point on that face to make sure that face is going to move up and down, restrictive, up and down. So I've selected that point, and then I have an option where I can tell the software that it should either look at the absolute magnitude or XYZ direction, right? So if I want the software to move that face within a particular direction only, I'm able to do that. So that amount of flexible control we have, right? So now this is set up. The other thing that we are going to set up is an enhancement about planar symmetry. this is actually very good, and I want the material to be removed which is symmetric around, half the part, or you have quarter, or you have more than the quarter, right, 1/8. So this time I'm going to select this plane around which I want the part to be symmetric about. So it will remove the material symmetric about this plane. I'm going to select OK, and all I need to do is say generate. When I say generate, it asks me what sort of study quality you want. I'm going to put it low since I want less time for it to run. Of course, you can refine that. And this part originally is around 300 grams, and I want to remove around 10% of the weight, right, keeping in mind the stiffness. So I have different options, and I set this to generate. It gives me a warning saying that do I want the preserved regions, because the preserved regions are more than the target volume. I say okay, that's okay, I've preserved certain region which is more than the target volume. Now instead of just waiting for this to solve, it takes around a minute or so to solve, I would go back to the PPT and actually tell you what is going on. So you are basically trying to optimize the part around a plane, keeping in mind the boundary conditions and the loads that have been applied. This will actually convert the part into a mesh model, right? It's a faceted model, and there are certain commands that we would later on be using this. We would take on the mesh model and remesh this. So this is very unique with Siemens technology, right? We remesh it and we try to find out by applying actual loads on it whether it will sustain that or not after it has been gone through generative design. At the background, you have a very powerful SimCenter Nastran solver, so that is at the base of our simulation. This is what we saw right now. Maximum displacement can be applied, planar symmetry. Before going on to the next one, I'll come back again, and it gives us a brief summary of the time that has elapsed, the status also, so it is still generating it. In the background, it is also generating a report of the things going on over here. So until now, anybody has any questions? No? That's good. Allow me to just run this for a couple of more seconds. So what it is trying to do is, in the background, it is minimizing the weight of things by around 10 grams. I'm sorry, 10%, which is 30 grams. Now it has done it, it has finished. So the time required is basically to make sure that it is symmetric around the center plane, right? So any idea how we are going to manufacture this? How are you going to manufacture this? Sorry? Punching. Okay, stamping. Any idea? 3D printing. Okay, I see some faces that. So I haven't tried it myself, but I'm sure you can reach out to the PD team for that. Yeah, I'm sure if this is possible here, it's possible with 3D printing. Okay, any which ways, the point over here is this can be manufactured, right? So this actually has created a faceted model, generative design, and I'll show you the stresses where they are occurring. So when I zoom in, you can see that the stresses that are occurring at the very bottom, and the stresses that are shown in megapascal is 22 megapascal. The yield for this steel is around 262 megapascal. So it shows safe, but then again I want to run a simulation, static simulation on this. So can we run a static simulation on a faceted model? Let's see if we can do that. I'll just go to view and actually show you the faceted edges. So this is something that the model is. So right now I want to run a simulation. For that, all I have to do is right click this, detach from the study. At the right hand side you have a solid mesh body that I need to toggle from design, and then it gets included within the design bodies. This is the original one, the design body, which is hidden, and this is the one that I want to work with. So all I do is right click on the design body and say activate this, and then I no longer require my original body, so I'm going to right click this and delete this. So now this body is good to work on. So I'll quickly go to simulation, run a new study. It gives me certain options. The study type I'm going to run is linear static with tetrahedral mesh, and the options that I have is geometry check. I am going to put it as warning only. Once I start this, I'm going to fix this right at the bottom. So simulation, I'm going to fix this right at the bottom. Right click. I'm going to give it loads, which is force on the top. Again, direction this way. 1000 newtons force, and all I have to do is just mesh and run this study. So when I go for meshing, this is actually going to take into consideration a meshed body and then remesh that body. So it's quite unique, and it does a fantastic job of meshing that. We have also come up with new features and enhancements with respect to meshing. So I'll also be showcasing you that. So it usually takes a few seconds to get into the command. With a tet mesh, I'm going to set it at coarse because I just want to show you how it happens. And then a body mesh option was earlier available for parts. It's now available with sheet metal assemblies as well as parts. So if I show you the options, you can set around points around circle, Jacobian to around 6 so that it saves me some time, and I say mesh and solve. So again, it shows me a mesh progress, what it is doing in the background. It will first load the geometry, then mesh it, and then generate the results for us. Right, so while this is happening, this would also take around a minute or so. I'm going to revisit the presentation. Okay, so up till now we generated a mesh body. We took that mesh body, put some forces on it, and now we are running this in the background. What we can do with that is we can run multiple what if studies, right? So we can duplicate the existing mesh. No need to keep on meshing it again. It remembers that mesh, duplicates it, and then your further simulations happen much faster. We also have introduced a mesh quality check, which I'll show you in a few seconds, where there are 14 different Nastrange solver mesh quality checks that it takes us through, and it's actually very useful to find out where the errors are. Graphical reports of potential inaccurate results are basically output of this, and this makes our work much more easier. Okay, so coming back, this has been done. You can see that the stress hotspots are again observed in the same position. You can go ahead and animate this. This is how it is going to happen after the loads are going to apply, and I'll close this coming out. I can also see the yield strength. The yield stress is at the very bottom, 262 megapascal. Of course, this has not surpassed this. This is at 62 megapascal, so we are safe. I'll close the simulation results. There are a lot of many other things to show. In mesh, I can go ahead and check the mesh quality. So when I check the element quality, this is something new which is introduced. You can either have an error displayed or a warning and error. There are 14 different quality checks for aspect ratio, Jacobian, edge points, skewness ratio, for quadrilateral mesh, triangular mesh, as well as tetrahedral mesh. So let's put this to an industry acceptable limit of aspect ratio of 15 and see a show of elements. When I run a show of elements, it actually launches this word file, .txt file, and actually shows me. Right now I don't have any issues with the file, so it doesn't show me anything. It's good to go. If you are wondering why I'm not able to see any warning color or error code, probably it's at the very, the skewness or the aspect ratio is probably gone bad at the very end of things, right? So right now my focus point is not that. So this can be a very good element quality check over here right away. Now if I want to run multiple studies, that too is possible by changing the loads. All I have to do is right click static study, duplicate it, and then it shows you a pop-up saying that do you want to copy the mesh, right? So you don't need to go into meshing the part again. So it copies the mesh, and I am into study number 2 already. I can go ahead and change the loads. So there are a couple of loads that have been applied. I'm just going to change it from 1000 newtons to 2500 newtons, and I'll simply say solve. So you can see that it says load geometry. It will not go for meshing. It will automatically start running the results in the background. So this should take less time than the previous result, like you can see that it's already gone 80% or so, and then it is processing the results. So it's just one time that you mesh, and then the next time it's all duplicate mesh. So this was basically that. I'm going to go to the presentation in the meantime and move on ahead. Next enhancement is to do with technical publication enhancements, and I just got a cue that I'm running short of time, so I'm just going to do this a little bit faster. Now what we have done with technical publication is we have completely revamped it. It gives us a better look of Microsoft Office tools, and I have opened that in the background. This is technical publications. I have opened this. This you can see in the background is much similar to what Microsoft Word looks like, right? Everything is neatly laid out, right? Pages of the documents that I am going to publish for marketing purpose, animations that I can run with the tables. You see these animations that appear over here, right? So the first thing I would do is go to Illustrate and show the storyboard. For the second storyboard, the enhancement over here is I can go to the transition timeline, and I can actually go ahead and flash the parts. So this is the new flash part where I can have certain parts that are flashing. I can remove the overlap automatically, say OK, and just go ahead. And you can see that when I go back over here, the parts that are supposed to appear are flashing now over here. You see that? So that is one of the enhancements. The second one is similar to flashing. We can also have parts that are in the front or at the back can be faded and can be brought in ahead, so that the console was faded over here and I brought that ahead. Again, we have certain rich text that can be manipulated directly from here. So just select the text and it can be manipulated on the fly. So this was one of the enhancements that has been done, right? The next thing is now we also support simplified assembly, simplified parts, family of assemblies, family of parts within. So I just need to close this within the parts table. If I click on any of the parts table, the parts are highlighted. So that's basically one of the enhancements. I wouldn't. I would go to configuration, update. This is one of them, and I have certain parts that I don't need to show any of these updates for. So I'll say OK. Select the model, basically show where the model updated model is, and say update model. And this will basically update the model on the fly. So if there are any simplified parts or any family of assemblies, that would get updated automatically. And I'll say done. And these parts are now, you don't want to show a lot of details. Next, you can also right click on the properties and show that there are a lot of master pages that can be set now. Earlier there was a default of just one master page that could be set, so you can set different master pages, and I need to come out of certain command for that. Okay, certain objects that can be shapes can be set as commands, and let me just see why I'm not able to do this. Come out of edit page, yeah, and then you can change the colors also. Certain commands that can be set are changing the page automatically, running an animation, so on and so forth. So these are some of the few enhancements that are within this years of release. And of course you can publish this as an HTML file, so that all of this opens up on the web browser, and all of this document can be shared with third-party people, right? So I'm going back to my presentation. Next is quite interesting, and I want the volume to be up, please. This is value-based licensing, which is a tokenized system that you can buy as an add-on, and this is a video that would be running.
A flexible licensing option.
Can you please up the volume?
Challenges of a rapidly changing development environment. This approach allows you to discover new solid edge add-on products while increasing flexibility for you and your team. Let's have a look at how value-based licensing works. Starting with the base application, Solid Edge Classic or Premium, value-based licenses offer a fully flexible environment in which users can explore different functionalities. companies acquire a set of tokens which allow the running of a wide array of applications. Tokens are available in yearly subscription packs that make the add-on products available as a single shareable bundle. Tokens can be checked in and out to allow for maximum flexibility. Each add-on product consumes a defined number of tokens when in use. The total number of applications and which specific applications that can be checked out is limited by the number of tokens users have available. Value-based licensing is even more flexible when combining multiple users, each with their own desktop and set of tokens. Just imagine a worker is confronted with the maximum token limit. By having a joint token pool, the limitation is automatically lifted as he or she is able to claim unused tokens from a colleague. In this context, it's also perfectly possible for users to use the same application simultaneously, as long as the token maximum isn't reached. Value-based licensing gives you the ability to manage cost, discover new applications, and easily scale your business. In many cases, the total investment is less than individual licenses, yet the flexibility dramatically increases, regardless of whether the modules are used daily or occasionally. Value-based licensing, new for Solid Edge, offers a truly flexible, cost-effective, simple-to-scale approach that reduces risk over time and encourages users to maximally explore new possibilities.
Okay, so these are 8 add-on products that we offer with value-based licensing. I'm just going to pause for a couple of seconds for good. It is available as hybrid SaaS modules only. So we can take questions more on them later on. We have flexible licensing subscription packs of 25 and 50 tokens, basically offering more flexibility for you to add more of products. Okay, this brings me to the end of the presentation. Basically, traditionally we have been offering the customers, licensing options of perpetual only. Now we are also offering licensing options of Solid Edge SaaS, and my friend Nitin just took you through the advantage of that. We have a whole community running which writes blogs, and you can also as a customer share your own experiences on the forum and blogs, post your questions, and we also have a knowledge base. So this brings me to the end of my presentation. Solid Edge, basically 2023, lot of packed enhancements to cater to the design engineer requirements and needs, increases the productivity and reduces the time to design, create, connect and collaborate. So any question and answers, you can meet me during lunch or even ask the P rating for that. So I'm done. Thank you. Thank you.